Negotiations will come to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare a recess of the subcommittee at any time. The subcommittee today is meeting to hear the testimony on the impacts of the Department of Interior's remote and telework policies. If, do you have anybody coming in? The gentlewoman from California, Miss Cam Lager-Dove, is that right?
Yes, thank you.
Is asked to sit in and without objection so ordered. Under Rule 4F, any oral opening statement at the hearing are limited to the chairman and the ranking minority member. I therefore ask unanimous consent that all other members' statements be made part of the hearing record if they are submitted in accordance with the committee rule 3-0. Without objection so ordered. I now recognize myself for my opening statement. Good morning, everyone, and thank you to our witnesses for joining us today. To start out, I want to point out that both the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, and the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, declined to testify today or even send written testimony, despite their deep level of involvement in crafting the remote and telework policies for the federal government and related data collection capabilities for each agency. Despite their unwillingness to generally speak to the telework policies of the Biden administration, I must say I am not surprised, as it seems to repeat an ongoing pattern of the Biden administration witnesses unwilling to participate in congressional hearings. With that said, I am excited for the witnesses we do have today. We will examine the Department of Interior's telework and remote work policies and their effect on the delivery services to Americans. And to be clear, I recognize that telework and remote work can be useful in limited and well-defined circumstances. However, DOI has abused their excessive telework and remote work policies for employees at a time when even President Joe Biden is calling for a return to the office. The COVID-19 pandemic is long over, and the effects of the pandemic subsided years ago. As a result, last April, the Biden administration made the long overdue decision to sign my bill into law, H.R. H.J. Resolution 7, terminating the COVID National Emergency Act declaration. Shortly thereafter, OPM announced the removal of the COVID-19 nationwide operating status for federal agencies. Then in August, White House Chief of Staff Zients sent an email around to the cabinet members officials urging federal agencies to return to in-person work in order to, quote, deliver better results for the American people, end of quote. Clearly, even the White House is concerned about the excessive current levels of telework and remote work leading to a lack of productivity among federal agencies and the inability of agencies like DOI to meet their mission and provide core services to Americans. However, despite the direction to return to in-person work, DOI has only made minimal changes to their telework policy. The reality remains that DOI allows their telework eligible employees to only report to the office twice every 2 weeks. DOI has so far been unable to produce any meaningful data for tracking their telework and remote work rates among employees. So it is unclear how much progress the Department of Interior has made towards returning to in-person work. Here we are in 2024, and DOI remains mired in irrelevant and ineffective COVID-19 telework policies. The Department of Interior's agencies are less productive and continue to fall behind on outstanding work, affecting the delivery of services to all Americans. For example, last fall, GAO released 2 reports detailing the numerous delays and deficiencies at the Bureau of Indian Affairs, including their ongoing struggles to process applications on time for providing real estate services to the tribes and tribal citizens, and to close out agreements issued under the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act. The reports also identified serious health and safety issues at Indian schools and detention facilities, and glaring deficiencies with national data regarding missing Indigenous women. Additionally, our national parks are in a state of disrepair. Critical deferred maintenance projects are dragging our parks down, as the National Park Service has yet to make any significant progress on their massive backlog of properties and projects. even those that address immediate danger to the life, health, and property or the infrastructure. GEO also identified that NPS, the National Park Service, is currently unable to effectively identify and manage its deferred maintenance due to inaccurate and unreliable data, end of quote. Now, I expect my friends on the other side of the aisle to argue once again that if only Congress provided more funding, DOI could solve its many problems. However, I urge my colleagues to break free from this DC swamp mired virus so we can address the larger problems within our federal agencies. I disagree. After years of additional funding, literally it seems like funding has grown on trees around here. Nothing has changed. In all honesty, things have gotten worse. Sometimes money isn't the issue. Perhaps it's really poor management, and that often starts at the top with bad policies. As a result, it's the responsibility of the interior agencies to find ways to become more productive and efficient in the resources management already at their disposal. It is time for the DOI to return to more appropriate pre-pandemic levels of telework and remote work so that staff will have more and establish a stronger workplace culture for working in person. House Republicans have put forth a solution to the in-person absenteeism of federal employees, the Show Up Act, which would return federal agencies to pre-pandemic levels of telework and require federal agencies to submit studies to Congress detailing how increased telework levels during the pandemic impacted their missions. I urge the Senate to take up this legislation so we can get back to business here in DC. Thank you to our witnesses for being here today, and I now recognize the ranking member, Ms. Kamlager Dove.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's be clear, telework and remote work works. Workers want it because it makes them more productive and reduces stress by avoiding commutes. It has been life-changing for parents, military spouses, people with disabilities, and others who have access to more job opportunities and better work-life balance. Employers want it because it helps attract the best talent. New mothers want it because it helps them manage postpartum depression, motherhood, and life, and getting to Congress. My colleagues have cherry-picked the evidence to support their claim that we need to return to pre-pandemic telework postures. But most of the research shows that telework flexibility is a net positive for employers and employees alike. That's probably why a 2023 survey of House employees shows Republicans use it for their own staff. COVID opened our eyes to the advantages of telework. We can't and shouldn't ignore those lessons. And it's not so much about government agencies being unproductive. It is about being under-resourced, but also overwhelmed by Republican hearing committee gotcha agendas that refocus their energies on showing up and performing here rather than doing the work for the American people. So let's continue to put this into perspective. We know now that 2023 was the hottest year on record by a wide margin, and the rate of warming over the past century has no precedent. We also had record-breaking temperatures in our oceans, with marine heat waves occurring all over the globe. Concentrations of carbon dioxide and methane, two major greenhouse gases, also hit new highs. And the consequences are all around us: extreme weather, floods, droughts, wildfires, new disease outbreaks. It's getting worse, and addressing it will require resources, coordination, and commitment on an unprecedented scale. 72% of the American people know that climate change is happening every day, not 4 times a year. But what are we here to do today? We are micromanaging where people's duty stations are and how often they have to commute. Luckily, Democrats and the Biden administration are pulling our weight. Under Democratic leadership, we passed the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which had historic investments for addressing the climate crisis. Now the Department of Interior is working diligently and effectively to implement them both. In my home state of California, Interior recently awarded about $295 million to protect the Colorado River Basin, enabling us to conserve up to 643,000 acre-feet of water through next year to better protect constituents against the impacts of historic droughts and the climate crisis. That kind of commitment is what it will take. And this type of action is what my colleagues on the other side oppose. The Biden-Harris administration is getting the work done, remotely, hybrid, and in person. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being here. I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady from California. Today I'm now going to introduce our witnesses. First, we have Ms. Dawn Locke, the Director of Strategic Issues, United States Government Accountability Office, and Mr. Mark Green, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Human Capital and Diversity and the Chief Human Capital Officer, United States Department of Interior. Let me remind you that our lights are very key here. We have 5 minutes for you to test your statement. The light will start off as green. When you start to see the yellow, that means to start summing it up. We just got a couple minutes, a minute left. And when you see red, wrap it up. To begin your testimony, please push the on button to make sure that the microphone's on so everybody can hear you. We'll start with you, Ms. Dawn Luck.
Thank you. Chairman Gosar and members of the subcommittee, or member of the
Can
subcommittee.
you pull that a little closer to you?
Oh, sure. I am pleased to be here today to discuss telework and the Department of the Interior. GAO's work highlights some of the benefits and challenges of telework, as well as key practices for successful telework programs. As telework continues to evolve, it's important to have a clear understanding of how telework can help or hinder mission performance so agencies can make necessary adjustments. To start with benefits, they include a reduced need for office space, which can result in cost savings. Telework can also help agencies' organizational health, such as employee engagement or resiliency to ensure missions continue during periods of disruption, like what we've seen during this week's snowstorm. In addition, human capital officers have reported that telework can address skills gaps, similar to those faced by the Interior, because if used effectively, telework can help recruit and retain the best possible workforce. This issue related to human capital management has remained on GAO's high-risk list since 2001 because these skills gaps undermine agencies' abilities to meet their missions. Again, effective telework implementation can help agencies address these gaps. While there are benefits to telework, it's important that we mitigate the challenges to fully realize these benefits. Challenges we see thus far include managing federal space, issues with technology, and data reliability. Allow me to unpack those a bit. When it comes to federal space, agencies have long struggled to determine how much office space they need to fulfill their missions. Retaining excess space is another area that has been on GAO's high-risk list since 2003. And as you are aware, Interior struggles with these very issues. We found that leveraging benchmarks established by OMB could help federal officials better assess workspace needs and potentially reduce costs. For telework challenges related to technology, we've identified equipment shortages, lack of training on the technology, and limited network capacity at various agencies. We've also found challenges with telework data, particularly data maintained in OPM's Human Resource Database system. Please note, improving the reliability of these data can better help agencies and all of you make informed decisions about telework. What I want to make very clear regarding these challenges is that they could be mitigated if agencies followed key practices that provide a roadmap for successfully implementing telework programs. These practices consist of steps like having a dedicated telework office to provide oversight, ensuring appropriate technology for those working from home, and having evaluation plans to make course corrections where needed. Federal telework programs faced an intense stress test beginning in March of 2020. This experience enhanced our understanding of what telework can do for the federal government. When used effectively, it could be quite beneficial, but only if we address the challenges. That is, only if we implement key practices and have the data needed to make informed decisions to ensure this workforce flexibility is meeting mission and customer needs. Bottom line, we must continue to provide oversight of telework and hold agencies accountable for meeting their goals, whether their employees are sitting in a cubicle, working in the field, or connecting virtually from home. I look forward to your questions.
I thank the gentlelady, Ms. Locke, for her 5 minutes, and now I recognize Mr. Green for his 5 minutes.
Chairman Gozar, Ranking Member Comliger Dove, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today to discuss the Department of the Interior's longstanding telework and remote work policies. I'm Mark Green, Chief Human Capital Officer at the department. After my 24-year career in the United States Army, I worked for the U.S. Forest Service, and I've been in my current position for about a year. Since Congress enacted the Telework Enhancement Act of 2010, the department has supported the telework program that allows agency employees, with the agreement and approval of their supervisor, to engage in appropriate telework and remote work opportunities. Telework may be authorized only to the extent that an approved telework agreement does not diminish employee or organizational performance, and any agreement must be reviewed by the employee supervisor to ensure that it does not impede the department's mission. The department continues to refine our telework program by implementing government-wide best practices, providing training to supervisors and employees, and improving our information technology infrastructure. These refinements and investments in our telework program enabled the department to quickly move to maximum telework posture while maintaining mission-critical functions during the COVID-19 pandemic. These actions complied with the Office of Management and Budget's guidance related to that emergency. Throughout the pandemic, the department's workforce of approximately 70,000 dedicated employees across 2,400 different geographic locations continued to deliver the department's mission. Our dedicated employees remained resilient throughout a very difficult time, managing and maintaining over 400 national park units, 550 national wildlife refuges, 475 critical infrastructure dams, and 480 million acres of public lands for the American people. Over 5,600 wildland fire personnel continue to fight fires on our lands and in our parks. The department's more than 7,000 law enforcement officers and park rangers served and protected over 500 million visitors to the lands and the waters under the department's stewardship in 2020 and 2021. Our scientists and field technicians continued to gather data and work in their laboratories. Simply put, the department's employees continued their important work under very challenging and unprecedented conditions, and for doing so, we are very proud of them. The department's workforce is made up of employees performing almost every job in the federal government, and we have a substantial number of people who work in person on the ground or at department facilities every day. About 55% of our workforce consists of customer-facing employees who provide core mission delivery functions within our public lands, recreation areas, parks, and wildlife refuges. Because of the type of work they do, these employees are generally not eligible for regular telework. A smaller portion of our workforce performs mission support roles that are not public-facing and are often able to be performed in a telework and remote posture. Our enhanced information technology infrastructure has provided the capability for our mission support employees to effectively communicate and interact in a secure environment. These employees in occupations such as information technology, human resources, acquisitions management, financial management, and other similar support jobs possess highly portable skills and are in very high demand in both the public and private sectors. This group of employees is generally eligible for regular telework and in some cases remote work. Over the past several months, the department has been reevaluating our work environment posture in response to OMB Memo 23-15 and the conclusion of the public health emergency to ensure our decisions regarding work environments continue to improve our organizational health and performance. In September, we implemented the requirement for teleworking managers and supervisors in the National Capital Region to begin working at least 50% of their time in the office. In mid-December, we expanded this requirement and notified all non-bargaining unit employees in the National Capital Region that they will begin reporting to the office at least 50% of their time beginning February 11th. Taking these steps will ensure that over 70% of the employees in the National Capital Region will be working in person at greater rates. Nationally, according to our latest payroll data, Interior's workforce is performing work in person 65% of our work hours. The department has also partnered with the General Services Administration to work to maximize efficient use of both department-owned and GSA-provided spaces. In the past year, the department developed a future workspace strategy, and in partnership with GSA, chartered multiple implementation teams at high-priority locations that are tasked in identifying space reduction targets in administrative facilities. As we continue to work with OMB, the Office of Personnel Management, GSA, and other agencies, we continue to seek opportunities to update our policies as appropriate. We expect the department's future of work policies, along with our use of telework and remote work flexibilities, will continue to evolve over time in response to market trends and mission needs. Based on our experience before, during, and following the COVID-19 pandemic, we believe the hybrid workforce model that we're operating in now is one that works for the department. In fact, for the department to remain competitive for the talent we need in the future, especially in mission support occupations, we believe it's essential that we continue to offer workplace flexibility such as telework and remote work. We recognize that our current hybrid workforce model may need periodic course adjustments, and the department's senior leaders remain committed to finding effective ways to enhance our ability to continually monitor, measure, and evaluate agency performance. While the department's mission always comes first, we can't make it happen and deliver for the American people without our amazing and dedicated workforce. It's because of our employees and the passion and commitment they show for their work every day that the department was recognized in 2022 among the top large agencies and best places to work in the federal government. I look forward to discussing this important matter with this subcommittee, and I'm pleased to answer any questions that you have today.
Thank you, Mr. Green. I'm now going to recognize the gentleman from Georgia for his 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Green, appreciate your service. Is your role, let's see, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Human Capital and Diversity, Chief Human Capital Officer, Department of Interior. Man, is your business card like the size of legal paper? That's a title. So in your role as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Human Capital and Diversity, Chief Human Capital Officer, Department of Interior, your policies, you don't only oversee telework, but you also oversee diversity, equity, inclusion, correct?
My role is really over the telework policies and remote work policies, human capital related things, but not necessarily the equity.
Diversity and equity and inclusion is included in that.
That's included in my title due to the fact of our candidate pools for hiring.
What I want to get to real quick, because man, 5 minutes flies. So in a memo to the Fish and Wildlife Service employees, Martha Williams is the director. She wrote that diversity, equity, inclusion work was her #1 priority. Now, Mr. Green, can you please explain why the Fish and Wildlife Service is prioritizing DEI initiatives ahead of the service's stated mission, which is to conserve, protect, enhance fish, wildlife, plants, and their habitats?
The department and the administration prioritize diversity, equity, inclusion, and it is an important aspect of all we do.
So that's their #1 priority.
But for Fish and Wildlife, I cannot answer specifically why
Well,
she
let's talk in general
her
terms
memo.
then. Do you think the Fish and Wildlife Service should prioritize DEI initiatives over conserving, protecting fish, wildlife, and their habitats?
I think it should be a priority that supports that mission.
So like also in March of last year, the Fish and Wildlife Service, they excluded participation in DEI groups from their service caps, which allows about 2 hours for employees to use for during work hours for resources and employee organization type meetings. So as a result, Fish and Wildlife Service employees, they can spend as much time as they want on DEI initiatives instead of working in their official on-duty duties. Can you explain why participation in DEI employee organizations are excluded from the service cap?
No, I cannot. I'll have to take that question back, and we could get you an answer for that.
So how does unlimited participation in DEI groups serve the American taxpayer who pay service employees to protect fish, wildlife, and habitats?
Our mission delivery to the American public is the #1 priority, and DEIA is an administration priority that fits into all that we do on that
Give
mission
them
delivery.
unlimited on DEI, but it's capped at 2 hours on what their mission is. Okay. Mr. Green, you know, I'm sure you would agree with me that since humans are part of the animal kingdom, correct? And you and the Fish and Wildlife Service is focused hard on DEI. So I'm going to ask you, have you seen any evidence of lack of diversity, equity, and inclusion in other animals in the animal kingdom? Say like maybe the rainbow trout, horny toad, the red cockaded woodpecker?
I'm not an expert on all of those things, so I won't be able to answer that question.
What I thought. Mr. Chairman, I would have asked about the common cockchafer, but his department doesn't have any jurisdiction over them since they live in England. So with that, I'm going to yield back the balance of my time.
I thank the gentleman. Now the gentlelady who just got here from New Mexico, Ms. Stansberry, the ranking member, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I heard today's hearing was about telework, so I thought I'd give it a try. Just kidding. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to our experts and to have the Department of Interior and GAO here. Thank you all for being here today. I think it's clear that our entire economy and workforce has been transformed since the pandemic. You know, millions of people all around the world have changed the ways in which they're working, and we actually see increased productivity and effectiveness in people's jobs when they have more flexibility around how they manage their own days. So let's be clear, telework and remote policy actually works, and it works well. Workers want it because it helps reduce stress, it helps to avoid commutes, it gives them more time on the job. It's been life-changing for parents, military spouses, employers helps it because it like to use it because it helps them recruit new talent, especially in the younger generations, as much of our federal workforce is in the retirement phase of their lives. And it's clear that this has become a talking point here in this Congress. I was thinking about this as I walked over here this morning. I mean, this is one of literally dozens of hearings we've had this Congress about telework policies, and I find it strange that we're obsessing over this while we're on the brink of a government shutdown and haven't been able to fund a foreign aid package. I mean, we have real serious issues right now that our country is facing, and so to be spending this time doing hearings on telework policies seems a bit bizarre to me. So, you know, we're facing real challenges in this country, and the Department of the Interior, of course, employs tens of thousands of people, and they're all over this continent. They're doing everything from managing fish and wildlife to our national parks to serving the 570 plus tribal nations that are part of the great fabric of this nation, and trying to fight climate change. And this last year, we know that we saw the hottest year ever on record. So, you know, I think that it's clear that it has not impeded the ability of the department to deliver on its productivity. I also do want to just take a moment to address the comments of the previous speaker on the dais here. The reason why we value diversity in the workforce is because our society is diverse. And for far too long, we have had exclusionary policies and practices that did not allow people of color, women like me, to serve in positions. And that is reflected across our federal workforce. And so we're trying to make sure that we have a federal workforce that is reflective of our society. that there's opportunity for every single person to participate and to serve our nation. And that's why we value diversity. And I think that's really reflected in not only the priorities of the Biden administration, but the fact that right now we have the very first cabinet secretary ever in our nation's history who is an Indigenous person. That's extraordinary. It's historic, and it's important. So I do want to just lift that up for a moment. But Ms. Locke, I know you're here to talk about your work and analysis looking at telework policies. And I want to ask actually about GAO, which of course is an affiliate of our work here. Does GAO allow its employees to work remotely?
We can work remotely or do telework.
And have you personally found and members of your staff found that it affects your ability to perform, good or bad?
Can you turn on your microphone?
We assess the suitability of each position at GAO to determine if those positions could telework. And so those that were suitable for telework, they have no impact on our performance. And in fact, in 2023, we exceeded our savings by $20 billion in a telework status.
Which is another reason, of course, both the private and the public sector are seeking to increase opportunities for telework. Is not just that flexibility for employees, but it saves money for employers as well. And Mr. Green, you know, you oversee the human capital enterprise for the 70,000 plus direct employees of the Department of Interior. How have you seen telework affect the productivity of the department?
We have a very unique mission set in that many of our employees are public facing, so 55% of them are already working in person every day. According to our payroll data, 65% of our employees are working in person every day. And we measure our organizational performance by the measures in our strategic plan. And my understanding of that is that we've actually increased in many areas in performance with telework. And we're also seeing higher levels of retention of our employees and better scores on our federal employee viewpoint surveys around employee engagement. The tools that we have now, the technology, allows for managers and employees to stay connected and work together. And so job satisfaction is actually even higher according to the federal employee viewpoint survey.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Thank you, Mr. Green. I think that's a really interesting point for folks who don't work in the federal government. They may not be familiar with the federal employee viewpoint. I'm a former Fed myself. I used to work at OMB in the Interior Branch, actually. And one of the things that you see is that year to year, as these surveys are done, they're really a barometer of the health and well-being of our federal workforce, which encompasses millions of Americans, of course. And workplace satisfaction is not just a matter of people being happy in their jobs, but it's a matter of national security. It's a matter of the federal government being able to carry out its mission, and it's the ability to actually serve the public in all of the different things that the department does. So I just want to emphasize what you just said, Mr. Green. So you are saying that as a result of the changes in HR policies and the increased flexibility, you've actually seen an improvement in overall workplace satisfaction and recruitment and retention?
That's correct.
I don't think I have any other questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're certainly welcome. Thank you. So, Mr. Green, in regards to the public face of these agencies, and that public face being in person, like at the BIA. Not everybody can just interact with an email or a telework, can they?
No, our, like the GAO, Ms. Lockett stated, we go through an evaluation process. It's mainly mission support, non-public facing, folks that have jobs that don't require them to come into a facility to do many of the duties that they're assigned that can telework. Most of our employees are public facing. They have to come to do work on the land and engage with the public every day.
Okay, so the next question is for both of you. In the past, we've held hearings in regards to Department of Interior's security codes and their passwords. How has that issue been affected during the time of telework and remote learning? Ms. Locke, would you want to go first on that?
We have not looked into their security codes, but I can tell you that during the peak of the pandemic, when we were all in telework status, there were cybersecurity issues that popped. And fortunately, entities like OMB and DHS and NIST put out practices to help keep agencies safe. And in addition, the security officers were working remote, so they could address those security threats and put out advisories about them. But I do not have an answer regarding the.
Well, to your point there, I think you alluded to the problem as being that it's much more diffuse. If people were reporting for duty here in Washington, D.C., they're more located in one area, making it easier for the security evaluations and upkeep. Would it not?
That is not my area of expertise, so I can't respond to that.
Okay. Mr. Green, would you like to respond to that?
That's not my area of expertise either, but I can tell you that there has been major strides made with our Office of, or our CIO, our Chief Information Office, with leveraging new secure technology. To get a specific answer to a specific question, I would have to refer back to our experts back at the department to get you an answer on that.
So once again, to Mr. Green, if you're encouraging full-time use, what percentage of DOI is full-time job participation in phase?
All of our employees, whether they're teleworking or not, are working every day to deliver for the American people. I would say that, again, we have 55% of our workforce is public-facing, and they have to come to the land every day to do their work. And so the balance of the folks are allowed to telework either at an ad hoc basis, periodically, based on situation, or have regular schedules where they can telework from 1 up to 8 days per pay period of telework.
So in your evaluation, has there been any area of expertise within DOI that has been shortchanged with this, or that it doesn't like this type of application?
Looking at our individual employee performance management system, we're not seeing any individual employee performance issues. And then again, as we evaluate the department on our performance as a whole, we look at our strategic plan, and we're actually seeing increases there, and we're actually seeing better results on our federal employee viewpoint survey around employee engagement, how connected they feel to the mission of the agency, how they could feel connected to each other. These tools are vastly different than what we've had in the past. Even 5 years ago, the tools were not available for employees to engage at the level that they are able to now.
Well, it's amazing what technology will do. I mean, we can be in person. I mean, you and I can be, on different sides of the continent, and we can definitely see each other, talk to each other, see our expressions, all sorts of things that we couldn't have done before. So, I want to come back to the Native Americans. Are there shortcomings in some of this aspects, with Native Americans? I can think of a few, because if you're going out there and you don't have, they don't have internet, it makes it really, really tough to have application in that aspect. Would you agree? Could you kind of comment on those?
There's always been challenges where internet is available, but again, I would just have to, a specific circumstance, I'd have to know a little bit more. I could take back and get answer about that, but I would just say that as a whole, even the Bureau of Indian Affairs, they're one of our bureaus that actually has a higher percentage of in-person work than many of our other bureaus. They're up in about the 79-80% range last I checked on in-person work. So we haven't seen telework as being a challenge related to that, or the technology, because we still do, the vast majority of our work is done in person.
Well, I guess once again, you kind of made my point to a certain degree, is that most of your Native Americans or your Indian Affairs folks are in person, because I think they need a lot more help and kind of follow through and guidance in regards to federal registry, right?
I think you would see that out in all rural areas, and because we have folks in 2,400 different locations providing service to the American public. And I think you would see that same dynamic, because we don't have a large concentration of mission support people in those locations. Those are locations where those folks are delivering services directly, and so you would see a higher percentage of in-person work there, because their jobs just don't lend themselves to telework or remote work.
And, even in Alaska, you would see a higher percentage of those as well, and you'd see a better performance or about the same performance.
I think in most rural areas, you would see that. I can't speak to Alaska specifically as far as that particular data point. I'd have to get that. But I would say I think that you would see that in most rural areas. Anywhere where you'd see a headquarters kind of concentration like the National Capital Region, that's where you're going to see a concentration of some of these most of these mission support roles, and those just happen to be the ones that the work that they perform. They perform work here for folks all the way across the country, and they're able to do it because of the secure technology. And those are the folks that are able to telework, and in some cases, there's remote work opportunities there as well.
Ms. Locke, have you seen any changes? I'd like to get your input on those same things in regards to Native Americans from that standpoint.
So what I will say is I just visited the territories on another congressional request, and DOI was part of that review. And in talking with them, we did ask about telework, and in particular Fish and Wildlife officials as well as National Park Service officials stated that since they started offering telework, their pool of applicants opened. They had a larger geographic area to choose from and more skill sets to choose from. With that being said, they also acknowledged that while recruitment and retention had improved, that not every position was suitable for telework because they had to be in person. But they said even if they offered 1 day a pay period to telework, when those individuals who normally have to be in person just had to do administrative stuff behind the computer, that was beneficial to them.
Well, I find this very interesting that we stumbled, and kind of blindly, in regards to the COVID national emergency, that we stumbled on this, and we're seeing some results in regards to that. So I find it very interesting that we've gone down that road. Okay, any questions? Any more? Well, I just got to tell you, thank you, Ms. Locke, Mr. Green, for your indulgence today. We appreciate you. I wish that some of the other agencies would come forward. We certainly appreciate them doing that. I thank the witnesses for their testimony. The members of the committee may have some additional questions for the witnesses, and we ask that you will respond to these in writing. Under Committee Rule 3, members of the committee must submit the questions to the subcommittee clerk by 5 p.m. on January 23rd. The hearing record will be held open for 10 business days for your responses. If there's no further business, committee is adjourned. Thank you.